Hello, everyone. My guest today is Reid. He's the founder and CEO of Sortable, a Waterloo Region startup on a mission to empower publishers. With engineering background from the University of Waterloo, he's a serial entrepreneur on his fifth venture and has led tech ventures in industries ranging from educational technology to the consumer web and B2B SaaS. He's a driving force behind Sortable, which was formerly Snapsort Media, which uses machine learning to help online publishers automate ad operations. Previously a web publishing company, it was acquired in 2011 and bought back in 2014 to relaunch Sortable's current day business. We'll jump into it today. Chris, are you ready to take us to the top?
I am.
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be fun. So it sounds like, did I get this right? You built an agency, you sold it, you didn't like what happened to it, so you bought it back, and now it's more pure play SaaS. Is that accurate?
No.
Give me the update. Give me the accurate version.
Yeah. So we built out a publishing business that was consumer focused, sold it, and wasn't happy with the trajectory we were going on post acquisition, and so bought it back and largely pivoted to a B2B focused SaaS company trying to help publishers. So first company was publishing based. We learned a lot of lessons as a publisher, and then bought the company back and repivoted towards helping publishers.
Okay, so there are let me break this down for a second. Number one, why'd you stay with the company after the acquisition? Was there an earnout you had to?
I think with all acquisitions, there's some type of tie-in. I think that there's like monetary tie-in, stock tie-in, and then also just me wanting to, finish the job, right? There's like a commitment. So a lot of reasons.
And why did it take 3 years for you to realize your new home wasn't going to be a good fit and you should spin it back out? Why not do it immediately or after a year?
That's just that I would never do that, right? I would never sell something and then not try and make it work for the acquirer.
Sorry, Chris, I'm not accusing you of doing something unjust. What I'm saying is, why did you need a 3-year cohort sample size, right, to understand it was never going to work, right? Why not? If we go off your current logic, why not stay? And why didn't you try it for 10 years?
Oh, because it was clear. It wasn't clear initially that it wasn't going to work. It took some time, and then it took some time to execute a buyout. Like
I see,
working with private equity firms who have to, working with the money side is not necessarily easy. So it's like you can kind of break the time up into. We continued to grow the company; it was going well. Then a period where it looked like, it wasn't going to be what we thought it would be. And then a period of executing the buyout. That, those three things took time, and that's how you get to 3 years.
So how much capital did you need to raise in a roundup from these private equity folks to take it back private? Are we talking like $1 million or $100 million or?
So I'm speaking primarily about negotiating with the PE firm who largely controlled us taking it back. Not us raising money from private equity.
You're talking about Rebellion directly.
I'm talking about the PE firm that backed Rebellion.
I see. Okay, Rebellion was the company that bought you guys in the first place. You had to kind of get on good terms with them first, negotiate the deal, and then you were able to spin it back out.
Yeah, you have to negotiate both with the acquirer and with the PE firm who has a lot of say over what they do.
Got it.
So,
yep. Okay, let's focus on the business. So what's the company do? And today, again, how do you charge? How do you make money?
So we charge publishers in sort of two models, right? One model is sort of a SaaS style tonnage fee, which is on a CPM basis. And then the other way we charge is on a rev share.
Okay.
So that's how we make money.
Great. And is there do one of those make up more like the majority of their revenue? So does 80% SaaS and 20% is rev share? Something like that?
Yeah. Ultimately it models out like SaaS because the way we make money is a function of the amount of advertising someone is doing. So that's a pretty stable, it's a pretty stable sort of input. So the input is how many impressions, how many ads are we managing for you? And then the output is we're either charging a fixed amount per ad or we're charging a rev share amount per ad. And we're primarily rev share focused. But the two model really similarly, because at some point, a CPM and a rev share are actually the same thing. They're transacted on a per impression basis, and they can actually back out the exact same way. So it's really two sides of the same coin.
In turn, when you say model similar to a SaaS company, people like SaaS because they like predictability, right? And so they look at things like churn to see, is the bucket leaky or is it truly recurring revenue? So if I just ask you just to try and understand this in one metric, net revenue retention annually, are you guys above 100%?
In aggregate, we try and look at it across a few cohorts, right? So that it's like, it makes sense. And I would say yes, because there's, normally in SaaS, you have a lot of upsell opportunity, right? And so that's fairly typical. With us, there is some variability because some publishers grow really quickly. And as they grow, that kind of looks like over 100% retention. But if a publisher shrinks, they don't. And so modeling out retention in our industry is like a little more complex because you do have that variability. You also have variability across quarters. So Q4 is the huge advertising season. So revenue goes up. So you don't really have retention going up. So we can look at revenue retention. We can look at just like the number of publisher retention. We can look at
what is that? What's number of publisher retention?
Oh, it's like 90. Yeah. So this doesn't factor in upsell, but it's like 95%, something like that. Again, I would have to bring on my VP of customer success to give you.
Yeah. We won't go too deep there. I just want to understand, a lot of times I'll have ad tech companies on and they'll call themselves SaaS and it's tied to ad spend. And Chris, I've never seen more lumpy P&Ls in my life. It's not SaaS. It's like super, super up and down. What I'm hearing you say is you have the basic ups and downs of spend related to like the holiday season in Q4, but generally over the course of a year, your net revenue retention is over 100%, meaning revenue that you lose from publishers who are shrinking on a yearly basis is more than made up by folks that are spending more on you and having more success on you. So that's how you get north of 100%.
Yeah, and to be fair, most ad tech, it's like some ad tech companies are really SaaS based where they're charging a monthly fee for something. Like when Domo works with a publisher, is that a SaaS-based ad tech company? I mean, Domo's not an ad tech company, but they work with a lot of publishers.
So they're selling the platform, though. It's not a percentage of it. Like typically, it's not a percentage of ad spend or a rev share.
Right. But and we're a little different in that we're charging. We help publishers with their entire business, right? Whereas most ad tech companies, or I would say most exchanges, most people who transact on revenue, are transacting on a piece of a publisher's revenue. So that creates a lot more variability. Not only is there variability in terms of the publisher's volumes, but there's variability in terms of how much of that volume you're able to capture. And so we don't have a lot of that variability. We lose the variability piece in terms of what volume of publishers transacting that we participate in. We are primarily helping them with all of their business, right? So they're coming to us and saying, we want you to help us optimize our entire business. And so it's a lot less fickle than I would say typical
point solution.
Yeah.
Let me try and summarize that just so we don't go down every potential little alleyway here. The average customer per year is paying you what?
We don't disclose that.
Sorry, give me a range. I mean, are we talking, $1 million, $100 million, $500,000?
There's a pretty broad range. We work with very small publishers and we work with very large publishers, and there's a huge range there.
Just give me whatever range you're comfortable. I'm trying to get a general sense of if it's kind of SMB or enterprise or mid-market. Just give me a general range, whatever you're comfortable with.
I don't want to get into ranges because I don't think that that's going to be
Chris, it is meaningful, right? We've done about 3,000 of these interviews. It's one of the number one pieces of feedback we get from audience and folks that listen in is we don't know if this was small, medium, or large, right? So, I mean, can you give me a general sense? Again, whatever range you're comfortable with. I understand you don't want to share exactly, but a general sense.
Yeah, publishers could be anywhere from sort of tens of thousands of a year up to hundreds of thousands.
Okay. And that's to you, not their ad spend.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, cool. And then put this on a timeline for me. So you spun it out, I think you said in 2014. Is that right?
Yeah.
And have you bootstrapped it since then, or no, you raised?
I have a few angels who work with me from the onset, but it's from, I would say if you're going to define it, it's bootstrapped.
Okay. Well, so research team says, and I don't know if they pulled this from an SEC filing or wherever they pulled it, but that you'd raised about $1.4 million. Is that accurate, or was that pre your sale to Rebellion?
No, that's accurate. That's I think that's public knowledge. That's what we raised.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's why I wanted to ask and confirm it. So 1.4 million post the spin out.
Yeah, that was raised sort of on the onset as seed capital, but also as capital to do the buyback. To do part of the buyback. So.
Yep. Got it. Okay. And then what are you guys in terms of team today? How many people?
We're around 60.
60. And everyone based up there in Waterloo?
We have an office in Toronto.
Okay. Waterloo and Toronto. Anyone HQ or no, that's really split?
Sorry, ask the question again.
Is there a density around either one of those, or no, it's pretty evenly split?
Most of the people are in Waterloo.
Waterloo. Okay. And then talk to me about scale. So how many customers are you working with now annually?
A few hundred.
A couple hundred. Okay, good. So it's very much, I mean, it sounds to me, understandably you're being a bit vague in terms of the ranges, but it sounds like you're very much kind of an enterprise sale. Are any of these folks, the 60, like an inside sales model, or you have a no touch kind of onboarding process?
Again, it depends on the size, right? So like no touch, we don't really have a zero touch model. There's no like self-serve 100%, 100% inbound without any sales or account CS touching them before they're onboarded. But there's a range of interaction pre-sale. So someone might come on board, sort of like from a lead to an onboarding in 2 weeks. And it might take someone else, 6 months. 6 months is a little long, maybe 3 months, to make sure that we are, properly evaluating their business and properly assessing what kind of setup is going to help them the most. And for big enterprise customers, there's a lot of work to do.
Yep. And no matter which cohort you're onboarding, when you look at just from a financial perspective, how quickly you like to make your money back on acquisition, are you optimizing for like a 6-month payback period, a 12-month payback, or something even more aggressive in the 24-month range?
No, we work on less than 6 months.
Less than 6 months. Okay. And is that on a cash basis because you make folks pay annually, or no?
It's on an accounting basis. We don't factor in like our receivable timeframes into that calculation.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And then in terms of growth, right? So what are you growing at right now year over year?
These numbers, these are always, I would say right now we're probably 30-40%.
Yep. 30. What were we going to say about the numbers?
I was going to say that I don't know. I know a lot of founders and the highline numbers often do not describe what's actually happening underneath. So I'm skeptical of the usefulness of the top line number, but yeah, around 30-40%.
Well, the counter to that is a lot of people just come on bullshit. Right. And they're just, it's fake numbers. And when you really drill down, their business is about to go bankrupt next month. Right. So I think what you've done is valuable, which is, and this is what I tried to do on the show, which is you get the hard number, And then you ask the questions to understand, wow, you've done a great job, or you're not doing a great job. Like, what are you going to do better? Or what have you done really well to hit that? And I found that to be very effective. So 30 to 40% year over year growth. We can kind of back into a minimum here, right? I mean, you said 300 customers, you said minimum 10 grand per year. It sounds like you have some that are way larger than that. So if I just multiply that, I mean, that puts you at about 250 grand per month in monthly recurring revenue. And obviously we can multiply by 12 to put that on an ARR basis. But is that generally accurate, about north of 3 million in ARR?
No, we're much higher than that. And that's why it's like you have things are lumpy, right? Like I know really high flying startups that their quarter over quarter growth is negative, and then the next quarter is, they'll do like 40% growth in a quarter, and then they'll do nothing, and then one year they'll do 100% or 200%. The next year they'll it's just so all over the map that me looking at my last 12 months and my next 12 months, there's so much variability, especially as like a small company. There's so much potential variability that it's hard to pin a number down. But I understand why you need to.
Well, yeah. And Chris, just to be clear, I mean, the reason SaaS gets valuations that are above, say, a media company is because of the predictability, right? I mean, the thought is if you know some of these things, you put them in a model, and generally it creates predictability, and then you can use that to raise capital or build your team, things like that. I understand you've got some variability in your business, and everyone does, but it's helpful to understand how you're thinking about it. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
And just to be clear too, on the ARR, I don't want to over exaggerate. I'm doing a minimum because that's what you chose to give me. So I assumed you're doing obviously significantly higher than that, which is great. Are any plans to raise capital in the near future or no?
We don't need to. So
why
to
would
me,
you?
It's like, the reason why we would is because we want, as a when you're bootstrapped, you're very efficient with what you do, and you're very tactical. And so I think that's a very healthy approach. But if you want to have a bigger war chest, then you can typically expand what you want to do. And so for us, that expansion would probably be expanding the scope of product and of market penetration. So it would be like, it would be product marketing and sales. There might be some opportunity for acquisitions, but typically there's too many things that get in the way of the acquisitions that it's just not easy. There's not like an easy way to understand that. It's easy to understand, like add this market, like open up a sales office here, add these sort of marketing tactics and the people that are going to execute those and the capital to run those tactics, and build out a product team to do X and Y and Z. Like there's no perfect causality, but like,
yeah,
it's more causal.
I understand you don't need sorry, I'm rushing you. We're about out of time, but I understand you don't need the money. But if you did, in an ideal world, raise capital, how much would you raise to go pursue some of these things?
Yeah, we can do a lot as a bootstrap company. We can do a lot with, say, $10 million. Like that's for some companies that's nothing, and I think for us, we are able to make that go 5x further.
Yep. And would you do what most people do in a Series A or Series B? You look at selling somewhere between maybe 10 and 30% of the company for that amount?
No, we're not looking to do typical things. We will be giving less of the company away.
Less than 10%.
Like 30% is typical, right? Like it's like, that's like
not always. Chris, just to be fair, not always. I mean,
I know not always, but if you're reading like what people are like, expect to give 30, expect to give 25. Like this is fairly common. 10%. I mean, 10% would put us at a $100 million valuation, right? So, to me, it's like.
So, am I reading right? You'd say if you did raise, and you don't need the capital, but if you did, you'd want to raise at a greater than $100 million valuation.
It depends where we are when we raise. I don't think we're going to raise till next year. That's why I don't know. Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Like
well, you said pretty definitively it's not going to be 30 and it'll be below 10.
It's definitely not going to be 30.
All right, Chris. Very good. Let's wrap up here with the famous 5 quick answers. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Favorite business book? I don't have one.
What's the last book you read?
Last book I read, right now I'm trying to work through the last book I read was, I don't know, I think Influencing Friends. I don't know
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah,
yep.
That one.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
I mean, I like to watch what's happening with Elon Musk because it's just crazy interesting to see. Like, there's just so much there. There's so much meat on that bone you can digest.
Number 3, what is your favorite online tool for building your company?
Favorite online tool? Google search.
Okay. Number 4, how many hours of sleep are you getting every night?
7.
And what's your situation? Married, single, kiddos?
Married.
No kiddos yet?
Oh, yeah, both. Married and with kids.
Oh, good. How many, out of curiosity?
3.
Dude, are they sortable, employable yet, or no?
No.
All right. We're playing the long game there. And how old are you, Chris?
41.
41. Last question, Chris. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
I wish my 20-year-old self knew that somewhere in the world there's like mentors you can get at, and you should go get at them.
Guys, there you have it. Go find mentors faster. He had some success with Sortable, selling it early on to a larger company, Rebellion, backed by a private equity firm, then worked in 2014 to spin that back out and really scale it. Now they've got a model which is essentially a SaaS tonnage fee on a CPM basis and then a rev share basis as well. They've got 300 customers right now, growing 30 to 40% year over year, doing well north of $3 million in revenue. Net revenue retention annually over 100% with this team of about 60 people between Waterloo and Toronto. Less than 6 month payback period too. So healthy economics there. Chris, thank you so much for taking us to the top.
Thanks.